Here are the top 3 simple automations that you can build within 1 week and sell for multiple 4 figures. We'll discuss the technical aspect of each as well as the business, who you can sell it to and for how much. The first one is the AI SDR, or what we call it cold outreach infrastructure. Now, depending on the business in the industry that you're working with, you might go with the email or multi-channel outreach, which usually combines the LinkedIn and the email. For this, I would recommend you to use a Limblist because this is a very powerful software that combines a multi-channel outreach and can track the people and the replies throughout multiple channels within one contact. If you are doing the email, you can go with Instantly or Smartly. As the power base, you will use Clay. This is where you customize everything. This is where you get the prospect list into and personalize all the emails. Now, you need to understand that the process of setting up everything here of the AI SDR automation is very simple, very straightforward. There are hundreds of videos about this topic. Let me give you an example. First thing that you need to understand is what is your offer. This is not your offer, but rather the offer of the business that you're working with. Because at the very bottom here, I say that the best niche from our experience to sell it to are the people and the companies that sell physical products to other businesses. Think wholesaler, manufacturers, distributors. The reason for that is because they have a straightforward offer that is pretty understandable. Hey, do you need bricks for X amount of dollars tomorrow? Yes or no? People receive thousands of emails every month on spam emails, marketing emails, work emails in their inbox. So less complicated you can make, more returns you will see. Now, we as a company, as Quimple, as an agency, using cold emails to get the clients for us. And this is how I started my agency. But if you compare something like my agency or any marketing agency that's selling services to the businesses, to the physical products, you will see how much of a difference this simple offer can make. That is why first you understand the offer. You cannot do that for any business successfully. This is what I believe in. Cold emails right now are pretty hard, but not harder than, a few years back. It seems like more people starting to send emails because it's easier and easier, but the Microsoft and Google tying down the rules. That is why more and more emails go to spam. You need to have more and more sophisticated infrastructure. So I think there is a balance. It was always hard, and it was always hard to get the good results. So the first thing, again, the offer. Now, once you dial in the offer, the second one is the prospect list. You can keep it simple, especially if you are working with businesses that sell physical products to other businesses. You can simply use Apollo to get the leads. Now, if you are working with a company that targets a very specific type of the industry or even government type of the companies and institutions, I'm mentioning that because this was one of the recent companies that we partner up with. So you can use the Zoom Info. Zoom Info is, of course, a more sophisticated solution. It's much more expensive. You can find the resellers on Fiverr, on Upwork, but it's going to be much, much more expensive than Apollo. Now, let's say we have the offer. You understand that this offer is going to work. Then you get the leads. Once you got the lead, the third thing is upload it to the Clay. Clay is just a software that looks like a spreadsheet where you can personalize all the emails and personalize all the lines and do the research. So let's say we have, for each company, we have the website here, Claygent, that will research the company and will create a short description about this company and what they do. Now, once we have this description, you can technically create any sort of variables and spin tags sentences that you will use in your emails. Now, here's an example of one of the old campaigns here. In the sequence, you can see that if we're using the subject, within the subject, we're using a short product name because we're selling a very specific product. You'll see wine production, right? So each one of the emails will have a unique subject line. Then we're saying, hey, what are John? This is Jim. So your company. Now, in here, so your company services and products, this is the variable. As you can see, Soyo Valley Wine Production, Napa Valley Wine Production, this is the variable. This is the variable that was personalized here. That is it, guys. So you do not need anything else. Basically, once you figure this out, the third step, once you figure out the personalized lines and spin tags messages that you're going to use, then you upload everything into the Instantly. Within the Instantly, you will have your emails and domains already purchased from Google, Microsoft. Keep it simple, and you are good to go. Send 14, 10 to 16 emails per day throughout the business hours, 20 business days per month. Say you have 30 to 50 emails, and you will be good. But I am telling you, the offer is probably 60% of the actual results that you're gonna get. Of course, if you mess up the infrastructure, it's not gonna work even if you have a really good offer, but you can watch the videos and there are tons of them that will explain how to do that. As I said, the best niche for that is the B2B physical products. On the price, I would say there is a setup plus monthly. Setup will always have to be here. This is for you to make sure that the business is committed. We are usually charging somewhere between $1,000 to $10,000 for the setup, depending on the company, depending who we're working with, depending on the infrastructure. I would say you can go about, if you're like starting with this service, go with something like $500 or $1,000. You can easily justify that by purchasing the lead list, by setting up the infrastructure, buying the domains and all these things. Then on the monthly, this is a regular marketing services. This is the same range from $1,500 to $5,000 a month. We are usually charging somewhere between $2,500 to $3,500 per month on sending it up. Now, regarding the offer of how you can structure it up, what guarantees you can provide, I have made a separate video about it on my YouTube channel. You can just type Eugene Kadzin cold email and you will be able to find that. The second automation is the re-engagement campaign type of the workflow. This is where you have a business. You analyze the business that has the dead leads. All the businesses do. That is why it's easier to find them. Then you understand the best channel to reach out to these leads. You can understand that by analyzing the previous conversations that happened even with this prospect or with this dead leads. You can count the percentage of the outreach messages that were sent to either one of these channels, or just analyze the communication that the business have. Usually, if you're working with the US-based businesses, it's going to be SMS or email. This is or phone. If you're working with international companies, this could be the WhatsApp. Now, once you have the dead leads, once you identify the best channel to reach out, you actually run the outreach. Now, you do need to build some sort of a system to make it work, because in the long run, you need to track the results. And in order to track all the results, you actually need to understand what is the dashboard. For that, we're using, for example, high level, because within the one prompt, within our conversational sales system that you can license and resell to our clients, one of the automations that we have is called database reactivation agent that reactivates prospects within any pipeline. Now, you can build the same type of the thing through a simple automations on make.com or N8N. The logic behind it is that you will have a agent that operates on one of these channels. Now, if you're doing the voice type of the reactivation, you can use VAPI or retail for this type of the things. Both of them have great outbound calling APIs. If you are using the outbound SMS campaigns, when you figure out the limitations with Twilio and your account, you can build the agent on VoiceO and then send the first message, which will be very similar message and very similar structure that you do with Clay. You can personalize all the messages, but instead of the emails, you would personalize the DMs and then send it out. What I'm saying is that, sure, this is pretty configurable, but you need to have something tangible. You need to have a dashboard, especially if you're gonna work with the business long term. Because what we believe in, and this is what we see, is that the value, the actual money lays into the long-term partnership with the business on this type of the system. This is a great door opener where you can come to the business and say, hey guys, you don't need to pay us, we'll reactivate your leads, let's see what we're gonna get, and then let's discuss the pricing or something like that. Of course, you'll probably get some sort of the estimates for them so that they understand what do you mean, because if you define the re-engagement campaigns and database reactivation, there is the first part of the engagement where you're engaging with all the previous leads of the business. So this is one of automations. Maybe you can split it into the two, but this is a fixed work, right? So this is not like a recurring type of the job. But the second one, this is where I was saying that this is where the money are at, is building a system that will constantly re-engage with all the prospects that are getting lost throughout the pipeline. That is why you will have to build an interface where you will have a dashboard and where you will have the pipeline. Now, within our one prompt community, we have a guy who is actually running and actively selling the solution. I will blur some information out. You will see in his video, this is what he shared with all of us, like all of the license holders. He built his own interface and the dashboard that where he can manage all the conversations. Now, as I said, you can do it with a high level. You can build the Airtable interface, but because he's serious about this type of the solution, he has his own dashboard where he see, how many calls has been answered, how many prospects were interested, not interested, or how many got, the callback request. So you need to have it, and you better have it in a simplified way where you can not only analyze the results yourself, but also share it with your client. And the nature of the industry right now is that you can build the same type of a thing on something like Lovable, because the only thing that you need is the interactions back and forth between the APIs between the APIs of the outbound, callers on Vapi or retail, as well as the webhooks that they're sending back to analyze the transcript of the call. So this is pretty straightforward, system to build. And it can be very, very powerful. Now, if we analyze the type of the businesses that fit for this automation, I would say all of them. All of the businesses have the dead leads. But the best one for now, I would say, is the high-ticket B2C local businesses plus businesses with seasons, right? Because you can not only reactivate the prospects based on the time after they were considered dead or lost, you can also reactivate prospects based on the season. And these guys are like insurance, landscaping, real estate, or if these are the seasons, something like the roofing or HVAC. Now, the pricing. There is a setup, but instead of the monthly, you would charge the performance basis. Setup is usually lower because even though this is the marketing service, even though we are talking about bringing more money into the business, this is something new. This is something that they never experienced before, and it will be harder for them to see the value. Now, if you are willing to work for free, if you are willing to reactivate at least some of the prospects for free, that when you come to the business, you can say, hey guys, let's see how many dead lists you have. Let's say it's the 5K list. So let us try to reactivate 1K for free. Then for the remaining 4K, we will charge you, based on this result, we will charge you something like $3,000. And then we will build a recurring system that will reactivate and will be reactivate prospects within the pipeline and will be integrated inside your CRM system, or you will build your own system. And for that, now you can charge a higher setup fee, and then either the performance or the monthly. Monthly is not tangible because even though you are reactivating a certain amount of prospects every month, you better charge on the performance, because this is how the business can make sure that you are committed to show the results. You constantly update the system, and it's just easier for everyone to track the partnership. The third automation is the sales rep for coaches. We discussed this heavily inside the one prompt with some of the members. I was sharing it on the private WhatsApp. I was asking someone to please build a whole new agency around it, because this is such a great opportunity. Like, some of you cannot like even understand how great of an opportunity it is, because there are tens of thousands of coaches on Instagram usually that teach something. Most of the, not most, like a lot of the coaches use something like ManyChat. It means that the ManyChat allows them to automate certain things like freebies or certain communication type of the thing through a simple chatbots. But when they are selling high ticket product, they still need to nurture, educate, pre-qualify, and validate all the people that send them DMs. If we are talking about the trash niches like crypto, where with a lot of the influencers and a lot of people kind of trying to get into the space with no money, you can envision how many unqualified people they have inside their inbox, and they need to pay on a monthly basis to the actual reps that qualify all these people. And this thing could be entirely automated by AI. Now, I am going to create a separate video about the actual case study with one of our clients that has about 2 million followers right now on Instagram. As you can see, he has 200,000 contacts inside ManyChat. And what we did, we basically created a sequence of conversational agents that re-engage with customers, with potential prospects that send him a DM, and not only asking questions but also analyzing the profile of the user, seeing how many followers this user has, and based on that act in a certain way. This is a really good opportunity. Now, if you think about this, what you need is the interface, engine, and the actual reporting. The interface could be a ManyChat, or you can use something like the high level. Again, we have it already built in within the one prompt. You can easily connect the Instagram DMs. But if you do it yourself, when you connect the Instagram here, you would have an Instagram as a trigger to trigger any type of the agent, and then you will engage with the user. Now, a lot of the coaches, especially if they're in the financial sector, will know the high level. Some of them have the high level, so it's easier for you to kind of integrate the system inside their existing workflow. Within the reply channel, you just put the Instagram DM and you will run the automations that will talk to the user back and forth. Now, the engine, I would say if you're starting, same thing, just use the voice flow. You don't necessarily need to build complex systems. We are using voice flow as well as the N8N for all of our engine type of the builds, because we are trying to provide the most conversational experiences to mimic 100% human behavior. But if you are starting with something, if you know the N8N, you can go with the N8N. But if you know the voice flow, you can still keep using voice flow. You don't necessarily need to transfer to the N8N, because you can make all of the same things. Now, so we have the interface through the ManyChat or the high level. We have the engine through the voice flow or the N8N. And then the reporting, again, it's easy when you have such a good interface. For the businesses, I would say Instagram coaches is the #1 target for something like that, but also e-com brands. Now, not all of the e-com brands actually use actively Instagram, and not all of the e-com brands are interested in growing on the platform besides having, running ads and having the profile as their, catalog. But if they are actively trying to create the content on the platform, if they are actively trying to engage with the prospects, this is an awesome opportunity for the e-com brands that we also work with, that at some point I will also create a case studies about. Regarding the price, there is a setup. I would say don't care about the setup. You can literally charge them like $100 or like $1 just to see the commitment. Then integrate the sales rep, and after that, see the performance and charge them monthly. If you think about this, coaches are usually tax savvy in terms of the marketing, not necessarily like the technical aspect. So they know about the chatbots. They know that the communications can be automated. But the difference in you is that you make a true conversational experiences where you're faking the human behavior. And now it is harder to explain it at the very beginning. That is why, for example, for me, it's easier because I have the YouTube channel, I have the videos, I have the case studies. For you, if you're starting, you can build a demo. Then you can say, hey, chat with this demo. This is one option. Or then let's integrate it for 48 hours, depending on the volume of the requests they have, so that you don't need to ruin the pipeline for like potentially for 7 to 30 days. You can say, hey, let's integrate it for a few days. Let's see what people are asking and how our agent is handling all the conversations. And after that, you can charge $1,000 to $2,000 a month as a regular sales rep would, and then scale it infinitely. So instead of them having like 6 reps, they can have one that will do the human handoff and just the overview, and your agent that they will pay you, $1,000 to $2,000 per month for. Thanks for watching. We'll see you in the next one. Peace.